In the 13th century, Europe faced its greatest threat yet, the Mongol invasion, a force unlike any the world had seen. From the 1220s to the 1240s, the Mongols led a series of conquests and wars from Hungary to Eastern Europe. If you've ever heard of the name Genghis Khan, this shouldn't come as a surprise to you. However, at the hearing of the name Batu Khan, his grandson, fear enveloped the whole of Europe. As the Mongol storm swept closer, Hungary braced for its reckoning. What followed on the plains of Mohi would become one of the bloodiest and most decisive clashes of the invasion. The Mongols, led by the formidable Batu Khan, the brilliant strategist Subutai, surged through Eastern Europe like a storm, leaving devastation in their wake. Determined to defend his kingdom, King Bela IV of Hungary mobilized his army and forged alliances, including with the nomadic Cumans, fierce warriors in their own right. But tensions flared between the Hungarians and their Cuman allies. In a moment of chaos, the Cuman Khan was killed, prompting the Cumans to abandon the alliance and withdraw, weakening Hungary's defensive strength. As the Mongols approached the Sergio River, some Mongol princes hesitated upon sighting the large Hungarian force. They urged a retreat. Subutai, resolute and fearless, refused. He declared, "If the princes wish to turn back, let them go alone. I will not stop until I reach the Tuna, the Dunbay, and the city of the Magyars, Buda and Pest." With that, he pressed forward, leaving the hesitant no choice but to follow. The Mongols crossed the river with ruthless efficiency and quickly surrounded the Hungarian camp. Siege engines were deployed, battering their defenses. The Hungarian troops, fragmented and demoralized, mounted a resistance, but their efforts were disjointed and ultimately futile. The Battle of the Sergio River became another chapter of Mongol triumph. However, some princes criticized Subutai for arriving late with reinforcements, an absence that led to the death of their comrade, Behatu. Subutai explained that he had been delayed by the immense difficulty of constructing a pontoon bridge downstream, an area unfamiliar to the other commanders who had chosen to cross at a shallow ford. Unaware of the challenge, they misunderstood his delay. In an ironic twist, the princes who mocked him had no idea his bridge wasn't even completed when they crossed. Subutai calmly responded, "If you claim I was slow, consider first the reason why." Batu Khan, however, understood and appreciated the strategic brilliance behind Subutai's choices. In the end, the Mongols captured the city. A grand celebration followed, during which Subutai was honored for his leadership. Bowls of mare's milk and grape wine were raised in his name, recognizing the mind behind the victory. King Bela IV fled, and Hungary infrastructure lay in ruins. Yet behind the shattered walls and burnt cities was something greater. This wasn't just a victory of strength. It was a masterclass in military genius that redefined the art of conquest. In the spring of 1241, Europe trembled. Thunder echoed not from the sky, but from the hooves of Mongol horses storming into Poland and Hungary. At their head were the sons of the steppe, master tacticians forged by wind, war, and endless range of vision. To the kingdoms of the West, they were indeed a mystery puzzle, a nightmare attired in leather and iron. But to the Mongols, this was just another campaign, calculated, swift, and inevitable. At the core of their dominance was superior mobility. Unlike the lumbering knights of Europe, the Mongol cavalry had lightning speed, swift, well-strategized, and tireless. At the Battle of Mohi, this advantage shattered the Hungarian defenses. While King Bela IV reinforced his camp near the river Sergio, the Mongols, under the leadership of Subutai and Batu Khan, executed a gem of tactical deception. A frontal assault at the bridge distracted the Hungarians, while a second force crossed the river unseen, striking the other end like a thunderclap. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. Hungarian forces were surrounded and wiped off the face of the earth with savage precision. But raw force wasn't their only tool of war. The Mongols had mastered the art of wielding psychological warfare with terrifying skill. For example, in Poland, cities like Krakow were burned to the ground. At Liegnitz, Mongol horsemen crashed a combined European army, leaving Duke Henry II lifeless and his soldiers massacred. Survivors were deliberately released to spread narratives of horror, stories of cities utterly wiped out, of skies blackened by arrows. As you can tell, fear preceded the name of the Mongols, and no one wanted part of the smoke. Some towns surrendered without waging war right back. They preferred subjugation rather than utter destruction. Others resisted, and you guessed it, they vanished off the face of the earth. Aside from that, beneath the chaos was a complex web of intelligence. The Mongols were not playing the guessing game. Instead, they were adequately informed. Scouts, spies, and local informants fed their war machine long before the first arrow flew. Subutai, the great general and strategist, spent several years preparing for the European campaign. He studied rivers, roads, and defensive walls with the mind of an engineer and the patience of a hunter. He also had spent years studying maps and terrains. At Mohi, this allowed the Mongols to move undetected, strike from unexpected positions, and trap their enemy in a perfect state of confusion. None of it would have been possible without their revolutionary communication system. The Mongol Empire ran on the Yam, a relay network of post stations and messengers that enabled rapid communication and logistical support across their vast empire. Orders moved faster than armies. On the battlefield, drums, horns, and signal flags ensured that even in the chaos of combat, their forces moved with one mind. Where the European commanders were in a fuss, the Mongol units had unreal organization. With their dominance already secured, the Mongols turned their gaze towards the fractured kingdoms of Eastern Europe and Poland, where a much larger stage awaited. The world would witness the full force of their ambition. The Mongols, seemingly coming from nowhere and quickly gaining a reputation as the horsemen of the devil, enjoyed victory after victory, and eventually went as far west as the city of Wrocław, Poland. In addition, they had set their sights on the fractured kingdoms of Europe. With Subutai and Batu Khan remaining a dangerous combo, their next frontier was Poland and Hungary. To the Europeans, the Mongols were still an unsolved maze. They were distant, almost mythical. Only a few of them believed the gossip that came from the east, of entire cities annihilated, armies destroyed, and tactics that confronted the rules of war. But belief would soon be replaced by terror. In 1241, the Mongols flooded Eastern Europe, and Poland was the first to have a taste of what was to come. They struck like ghosts. Polish towns were torched without any opposition from the Polish citizens. Krakow, one of the important centers of Poland, which was once proud and defiant, was abandoned by its prince, Boleslaw the Chaste, and left to the mercy of the invaders' horsemen. The city, emptied and exposed, fell without a single fight. The Mongols looted and slaughtered, following the same brutal rhythm they had perfected in Asia. Legends have it that the trumpeter who first sounded the alarm was struck in the throat by a Mongol arrow, thereby leaving his final call cut short in mid-note. Then came Breslau, modern-day Wrocław, but there the terror had already taken root. The townspeople, gripped by fear, set fire to their city, retreated into the castle citadel. Even before the arrival of the Mongols, Breslau had surrendered to fear. But it wasn't enough. The Mongols pressed onward. They learned of an alliance forming a force under Duke Henry II, the Pious of Silesia, supported by German and Teutonic knights. They clashed at Legence. Smoke rose not just from the burning fields, but from the reeds the Mongols had ignited to blind and disorganize them. Using a 200 IQ maneuver, they feinted a withdrawal to pull the enemy in, only for the Mongols to surround and destroy them. Henry was killed, and his severed head was paraded on a lance. But while Poland bled, Hungary was trying to make sense of things. Subutai, the master planner, divided his forces and attacked from multiple directions. Armies surged over the Carpathians, through Moldavia and Wallachia, and from the north through Moravia. Hungary had been put in a tight corner. King Bela IV gathered what was widely considered to be the best armies in Europe, but political blockade showed disloyal barons and chaos caused by raiding Palazians fleeing the Mongols. It didn't matter. At the Battle of Mohi, the Mongols crushed Hungary's finest defense. Subutai's forces across a pontoon bridge, flanked by a swamp, and rained down destruction from catapults across the Sergio River. In Budapest, they looted and slaughtered. Matthew Paris, an English chronicler, wrote, "The Mongols swept through Europe like a storm, leaving nothing but death and desolation behind them. The lands they passed through were turned into wilderness, and the cities into ruins. No one could stand against them." But as they saw, nothing lasts forever, and the Mongols' withdrawal was no different. Some factors contributed to their withdrawal. What were they? In 1242, just as the Mongols were advancing deeper into Eastern Europe, an unexpected event forced them to stop their campaign. A Mongol army, having pursued King Bela IV through Croatia, sacked several towns along the way, was preparing for further conquest. But then crucial news arrived from Asia. Ogedei Khan, the great Khan and ruler of the Mongol Empire, died. As a result of his death, the empire was thrust into a leadership crisis. As a Kurultai, a council to elect a new great Khan, had to be convened. This news was critical for Batu Khan, the commander leading the invasion of Europe. Batu was one of the senior Mongol leaders and a potential candidate for the title of the Great Khan. His return to Karakorum was vital to participating in the Kurotai and consolidating his political status. Despite their success in Eastern Europe, Batu had an inevitable call to retreat and secure his place in the succession process. Likewise, internal Mongol rivalries also complicated the issue. With Ogedei's demise, no single commander could fully rely on the support of the others, especially when far from their homeland. Lastly, the Mongols' primary goal, the conquest of China, remained to the east. With the empire's leadership in question, Batu's force automatically shifted back to Karakorum, and the invasion of Europe ended. Not out of military conquest, but rather because of the imperative need to select a new Great Khan and regroup. Regardless, this meant a moment of breather for the Europeans. However, a question lingers. What if the Mongols hadn't turned back in 1242? Had Batu pressed west instead of returning to Karakorum, Vienna might have fallen, with its walls not matching the Mongol art of siegecraft. From there, the path into the heart of Europe lay open. France, already broken, could have had its chaos doubled under the weight of raids and shattered borders. The Holy Roman Empire, decentralized and often dabbling in internal conflict with itself, may have crumbled even without ever making arrangements for a united defense. No one in Europe was adequately prepared for the speed, coordination, and brutality the Mongols brought. Europe would have remained a montage of ruined cities, shattered kingdoms, and the Mongol shadow hanging over the continent. Cultures and kingdoms undoubtedly would have had their entire history rewritten, or worse, erased. Or, do you think it would have been any different? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us keep bringing you more amazing stories from history.